Hi guys, Lindsay here with Storybook Family Farm. Today I want to shoot a video in the area that I've been referencing as my experimental garden. I also want to explain to you guys how I created this and why I haven't shown it yet. So how I created it was in the springtime when we cleaned out the barn and did a big deep cleaning. We actually piled up, we didn't really know where to put the manure, so I decided that we would just make a big pile over in here, because it's kind of in a spot that would be ideal for in the future for if we were to build a greenhouse or a hoop house. Because of the fact of the location of it, it's not really that great of a spot for really much of anything on our homestead, because this portion of land over in here, which I'm actually right by the duck and geese hut and the canvas shed that we store the firewood in and our hay in, is actually about 15 feet that way. So I'm right on the edge of the property line. Here's the pines here that you guys see in videos. So I'm kind of on the edge. So this area is not really suitable to put any animals because it is a moister area. And it just kind of has been a dead space on the homestead because it's kind of in an awkward area for us. You can't really put a building back here. It's just weird, unused space. It also was relatively flat. So we put the manure over in here, and then I thought, I've read about different like lasagna gardening, back to Eden methods, doing mulch stuff. I'm like, I wonder how this would work to basically pretend that this is a brand new garden area, which technically it is. Pretend that it's, new land, new garden, all this stuff, to see how it would work if we just, in the early spring, laid out a whole shit ton, pun intended, of manure. And just smeared it out everywhere. It's about that thick of spent goat hay that also had duck and geese doo-doo on it and some chicken poo and just all of the goodness. So I spread it out pretty thick in this area in here, and I planted some stuff in it. So I planted some pumpkins, I planted some potatoes, I planted sweet potatoes, I also planted some sorghum, some cucumbers, and some pole beans. So not everything came up. So I haven't filmed about this. I haven't shown it because I really wanted to see how everything would pan out, because it is a different growing area. It is a more wet area. Things are just different here than any place else. And I also wanted to do a hands-off approach to see how this worked. So the results are in. The sweet potato vines, and this is only my second year growing sweet potatoes, so I'm not really sure what they would do. That's part of why I put them back in this area, because I figured that I knew that they vined from us doing them last year, but I wasn't sure on how they actually produce their tubers and stuff. So I wanted to essentially let them do their thing to sort of teach me how to grow them. So I planted them around in this area here, and there basically was a few good slips that are planted over in here, and they've taken over. So the things with heart-shaped leaves here, these are all sweet potato vines, which the leaves are edible, and livestock can eat them and that sort of a thing. We tried them last year when we were growing sweet potatoes, and I pretty much just spit it all back out in the garden because raw, it was not my cup of tea. So somebody else probably would enjoy it, but wasn't my thing. So the sweet potatoes have done really, really well. They've literally taken over this entire area. When I planted regular potatoes in here, they didn't do anything. I also planted cucumbers in here. They didn't do anything. I just sowed the seeds. But the funny thing about cucumbers is I'm a huge believer in the intentions of when you're planting stuff, that if you have, good intentions while you're doing it, that things will grow better. That if you think about how the food tastes and how much you enjoy the food when you're planting it, that it tends to do better. It grows better. It just has more success. For us also, whenever we try to think about, okay, well, this is a crop that we're going to be able to sell, we're going to make money from it, it never does well. Now with cucumbers, I do not like cucumbers. I actually have a skin allergy to them, so I can't really handle them very much. It makes my skin get really bad dermatitis. So it's just not a fun thing. I don't like the taste of them. I don't like the smell of them. I don't like the texture of them. But yet I was tasked to plant the cucumber seeds this year, like I have been for the last 4 years. Every single time that I plant cucumber seeds, I think, because I can't even think positive thoughts about them. I don't even like pickles. I don't like them. Every single time that I plant them, I try my best to essentially think about how great and wonderful and how much Tracy loves cucumbers and all this stuff. They never germinate for me. So Tracy could plant the same exact cucumbers and they'd do fantastic. The first year that we did cucumbers, she planted all of them, and we were literally giving buckets of cucumbers away to people because she couldn't eat that many. So lesson for next year, she wants cucumbers, she's planting them herself. So those things did not come up. The cucumbers did not. The regular white potatoes, it's getting awfully windy. There's a lot of dead pines in the neighbor's pines over here, and we've had some snap off, so it is a little nerve-wracking to be near them when the wind starts howling. But so the pole beans that I planted, I'll just walk over there. The soil quality feels really good, actually. This is the first time since planting all this stuff that I've actually stepped foot in this garden, because I don't know what is creaking up there. Obviously it's trees, but I don't know which tree, I should suffice to say. This is the first time I've walked in this garden since planting stuff, because I wanted it to be a pure experiment of complete hands-offness. So the pole bean that we have is right there. That is the turkey craw. The turkey craw pole bean. So I planted some of them in here because I wanted to do an experiment to see how I liked them, because I am looking for a different type of pole bean that'll do well, that's not stringy. So I don't know if this is going to be a contender or not, because this is literally the only pole bean that came up, and it's the only bean. But with stepping over here, I did notice a potato plant. So I thought that none of them came up, but apparently some of them did, because here's another one here. So that's exciting. I will have to, when this plant dies back, I will have to dig up the potatoes to see how they do. When I was a kid, we used to grow a ton of potatoes every year. So I've been trying to find a way to grow potatoes that don't require all of the massive amounts of hilling. That's part of why I put them in this area, because I've learned about different methods of like lasagna gardening and just piling on a bunch of mulch and things of that nature to make it so you don't have to hill the potatoes, because that is just an astronomical amount of work that I don't want to do, especially for a crop that is very affordable to buy at the store, and we don't eat a lot of potatoes to begin with, except for sometimes I get in a really big french fry kick, so then we'll go through a lot of potatoes when I really have a hankering for taters, but that's about it. Because of the vegetation being so thick over here, I'm going to flip you guys around again. So right in front of me here, this is sorghum. It is the broom corn variety. So I scattered a whole bunch of seeds that we had saved over the previous years of growing it. I just basically, everywhere that I planted the white potatoes, I put rows of sorghum down. I didn't even like hill them or anything. I didn't cover them. I literally just tossed them, because we had like a gallon freezer bag full of sorghum seeds. So they were a couple years old. So I just basically spread some around about to see how they would do in this area as well. Also just to see if the sweet potatoes would end up vining up them, or if they would just sort of stay on the ground like they have here. So that was a neat experiment. I definitely, next year when I plant sorghum again, I will definitely be sure to cover it up better, so that way the birds don't get in here. I did notice squirrels and chipmunks got in here and stole some seeds. So I think that's probably part of why the germination was not very good. And then next here we have our massive volunteer pumpkin and the turkey boys. So this pumpkin plant over in here, it actually starts way back there on the other side of the garden fence. So that is a volunteer pumpkin of some sort. We had fed the goats, given them a whole bunch of different fall mix pumpkins and squashes as treats throughout the wintertime. And this seed obviously survived the goats eating it and has basically become an unstoppable force. So right over here is one of the pumpkins. It is massive. I had to actually move a bunch of the logs in that area to accommodate more room for it. I think that it's going to be one of those varieties. I think it's called a pink doll, or maybe a cheese pumpkin is what it might be, because we had some of them. But this plant is massive. I will have to show you guys the outside of the other side of it. But I wanted to show you guys one of the female flowers here, because that's kind of neat. You can kind of see how there's almost like a little, towards the butt end of it, there's like a little squash that's there. That's how you can tell if it's a female or a male flower. But so I'm going to bring you guys outside of this area. We actually got a little bit of rain last night, thank God. So the ground in here is actually very, very wet. As you can see, it's all a lot of good nutrient dense goat poo and moisture. So this area back in here, I did not create an actual gate. for back in here because I wanted to just sort of kind of just threw it all together and was like, I'll make a gate whenever I get time. And I've kind of just not. So we just have a roll of fence that I just literally unroll it some to get in. And then this plant behind me here, this is actually some Jerusalem artichoke. Once it starts flowering, I will have to show you guys how pretty they are. They're kind of like, they look like mini little sunflowers. And the plants they're really tall plants. They get plastered with them all over the place. And some of the flowers actually smell kind of like one of those vanilla sugar cookie candles. They're really, really nice smelling. We're not huge fans of the tubers, but we grow them so that way we can feed the plants to the goats and the rabbits can eat them. We can actually eat them too. Little known fact is that every part of the sunflower plant, including the leaves, are completely edible for humans and livestock. So those are good plants to plant if you want a multi-purpose plant. The Jerusalem artichoke too. This year we're not feeding any of it to the animals at all because it's very expensive to buy the tubers to start growing it, but 1 pound of tubers can produce almost like 40 or 50 pounds of tubers after that. So this year we're basically growing the Jerusalem artichoke in a couple different places to establish a bed of it that we can then come and harvest tubers all year long. And then eventually also maybe even be able to sell some of the tubers. But that's never been our intention with it because, nothing grows well for us if we ever put that intention out there that we're doing it to sell it. So over in here, this huge squash plant is all on top of about almost 2 cords of firewood that we have right here. So we harvested a whole bunch of firewood. The neighbor behind us last summer, was actually getting his property timbered, which was a very devastating and heartbreaking couple weeks time of listening to all the trees fall. That was very hard for me. But so he actually let us come back there this year and harvest some of the stuff, the smaller round stuff that the lumber company did not want. So we actually were able to get probably about 2 cords of firewood off of him. But so this squash plant is literally one plant, and it is that freaking massive. So it is from here to where the garden area is at that we started looking at this squash plant. It is about 25 feet, and you figure this plant goes up and back down and is also spreading into the walkway here where the boys are at. Hopefully they won't step on any flowers. So this is where we were putting all of the manure that we had whenever we would clean out the barn, but we didn't put any over here because it was completely filled. This is a bed liner from my Ranger before we had to replace the bed and put it into a wooden bed. So we used this as a method to essentially haul all of the rabbit manure here when we moved here. So that way we could just set this on top of a utility trailer and not have to worry about the poo just being spread out along the road. So this squash plant is basically growing on a crap load of nutrients, pun totally intended, and it has just gone gangbusters. So over in there is the garden area. This squash plant travels down, it goes up, it goes around, and it goes pretty much everywhere. So it is stepped on some of it. It is definitely a force to be reckoned with, and it is also starting to grow and develop a lot of little tiny female flowers. So that right there is a female flower. You can see how there's like a little squash starting out right there, and then that'll be the blossom end right there. So it's really neat to see how much this thing is going to produce, because right now there are 2 of those big pumpkin-y squash things on there. The other one is tucked in. I'll flip you guys around. The other one is right here. So I mean, I have really big hands, and my hand is nowhere even near the size of it at all. So I would guess that one is probably at least 10 pounds. So it is a big mamma jamma. So yeah, this thing is going to be cranking out a lot of food for us and for the animals. So I'm very, very excited about that. But I wanted to show you guys what a male squash plant flower looks like. See, there's no squash underneath of it. So it's kind of a neat thing with the squash and zucchinis and the cucumbers and things in that nature, because they also do the same thing of where a female flower, it'll show you basically where the little squash is going to be, the little baby squash. So it's kind kind of a fun and exciting thing to be able to look at the plant before it starts producing and see basically what all it's going to produce. So it's kind of cool. But anyways, that's my tour of the experimental garden. So far, it's minorly successful. Once it becomes time to dig up the sweet potatoes and the regular potatoes, I will know better then how well this worked. But as of right now, I don't think this is how I would start a new garden in the springtime. I think that doing this in the fall would have been better to let it sit and age throughout the entire winter time. So I'm curious to see in the springtime what the soil looks like underneath of this. Also to come fall, once this garden is all done, we will probably pile on more manure in this area too, just to sort of build it up to have a deeper layer to see if different root crops will work better over in here than the rest of the garden, because where the rest of our garden is at, actually is very, very dense clay that is hard to get roots to grow in it. So hopefully this will be sort of a future endeavor that'll pay off. If not, it's just a really nice, easy, convenient place to store the manure, I suppose. So anyways, thanks for watching. Have a good one, guys.